Hi, this is Colette Broomhead. I'm a business coach and I work with mum service providers and I help them to develop and sell their 1K plus services so they can hit 5K months. And I am here to chat to you about content and in particular content pillars. Now, let me start off by talking a little bit about, why we need to worry about this stuff, why we need to care about our content. And then I'm going to chat to you about some of the more common mistakes I see when I see people creating content and planning their content. And then lastly, of course, I'm going to share my content pillars. These are the pillars that I use in my own business and the ones that I teach my clients. And if you are a service provider looking to sell a high ticket service, then these are going to be really relevant to you and your business as well. So keep watching. So let me start off by talking about why content is so important. You probably already know this, but I think we can all do with a reminder once in a while. So if you are a service provider and you are marketing your business online and mainly getting clients online, then there is a decent chance that you are already creating a lot of content. Perhaps you're on social media, so you're creating social media posts. Maybe you've got an email list, so you're writing regular emails. Perhaps you're blogging, perhaps you've got a website, so you're creating web copy for that. There are so many video content, perhaps you've got a podcast. There are so many possibilities for the content you could be creating in your business, and it will be a core part of your marketing strategy. So it's also core that we're creating effective content, because otherwise essentially it's just a big old waste of our time. So how can you create effective content? Well, first of all, let me as I said, just touch on some of the more common content mistakes that I see people make, and then I will share with you my lovely content pillars that are going to make your life so much easier. So some mistakes I see. One of the first things I wanted to talk about was people kind of spending all of their time in how-to content. So this is your kind of niche-based content, essentially. This is the kind of, where you're answering questions, you're telling people, sharing, how people can do stuff, maybe sharing tips. That kind of content. Now, of course, that has its place, and I will be sharing more about that when I talk you through my pillars. But if you spend all your time here, you're going to be missing out on some of the kind of core purposes that your content has, again, which I'll be exploring a bit more when we go into the pillars. But needless to say, if all you're doing is creating how-to content, that's not the full picture. And so you will find that there are elements of your marketing that probably aren't very effective right now. Another mistake I see is this idea of not wanting to plan. And I get this. I talk to a lot of people who are like, I've tried planning, doesn't really work for me. I find it a bit restrictive, prefer to go with the flow, wait for inspiration to strike and all of that kind of stuff. And, I get that. In theory, that's a lovely idea. In practice, what tends to happen is you will, of course, have times when inspiration doesn't strike, when perhaps you don't feel in flow. And so your content becomes inconsistent. It means you're not showing up as consistently as you could, and your kind of visibility is suffering as a result of that, and your marketing results are suffering as a result of that. So that's something to just kind of keep an eye on. You can absolutely kind of plan your content and still leave space for there's times when you're really in flow, or for when inspiration strikes. There's a happy medium to be had there, 100%. And then the third thing I wanted to chat about was kind of creating content without a clear purpose in mind. So I think often we see content almost as this kind of tick box exercise. It's something that we know we need to do. We know, we need to be kind of getting content out there, being visible, and all of that stuff. And so it's on our to-do list. And we kind of sit there, think, what can I write today? What can I get out there today? And then it's like, tick, right, that's done, phew. And wherever we kind of just stay at that level with our content, it's never going to be as strategic or as effective as it could be. You always need to have some kind of clear purpose in mind when you're creating content. And that purpose can be, a number of different things, which I will explore more deeply when I start showing the pillars. But if you don't have that purpose in mind, then of course your content isn't going to be as effective as it could be for your business. So those are some of the things to kind of keep an eye out for in your own business. And you may have already kind of recognized some of them as you know, happening or having happened in your business before, in which case, you know, you're not alone. So with that, let me take you into my content pillars. So I call these the on the money content pillars, and I call them that because I love a good acronym. And money basically is the spells out, it's the initials for each of the pillars that I'm going to be sharing. So I thought it was wonderful. Anyway, so M, let's start with M. M is for your message. Now, messaging, I know, is one of those kind of fairly fuzzy marketing jargony terms. So let me explain exactly what I mean when I talk about messaging. For me, your messaging should incorporate three things. It should incorporate who is it I'm here to serve? Who is my ideal client? Who is this service for? It should incorporate what does it help them with? What is the result? What is the transformation that this service is going to help you achieve? And then thirdly, it should include, you know, why should you choose me? What makes my service different from others? What makes my service the best one for you to invest in? So that, in a nutshell, is your messaging. And that's a core part of what your content should be talking about. So one core content pillar to bear in mind is make sure, am I on a regular basis sharing information about who I'm here to serve, who are my ideal clients, what it is I help them with, and, you know, what makes me, the best qualified person to help them. Okay, so that's pillar number one. Pillar number two, O from our money acronym, is offer. So of course, you know, if you are selling a service, you at some point need to talk about that service. You need to let people know that you have a paid way to work with you. And it sounds so obvious when I say it, but it's so common for people to just not do this because selling feels a bit awkward. We don't want to be pushy. We don't want to be spammy. And so we kind of dance around it and never actually talk about the paid way to work with us. We never actually talk about how people can invest in our service. So make sure when you're planning out your content, you know, you are leaving room for this. You're leaving room for content that, you know, specifically talks about your paid service, what it is, what it looks like, how people can take the next step, how people can, you know, get more information and all of that stuff. N is for niche. So this is, I started out by saying a common mistake is people spending all their time in niche-based content. But of course, yes, you absolutely should spend some of your time here because this is your area of expertise. This is how you build credibility. This is how you build trust that you can actually help someone. You can kind of show them that you know what you're talking about. So niche-based content definitely has its place. It just shouldn't be all of your content. So just as a reminder, the kind of things I'm talking about when I say niche-based content is anything that is around your kind of area of expertise, the thing that you help people with. So for me, it's going to be, you know, business-related topics. It's going to be this kind of content where I'm sharing, strategy, advice, tips on the area that I help people with. So usually that is where we tend to spend most of our time because it's kind of our comfort zone, or it's that, you know, it's usually going to be the topics that we're really excited to talk about and that we're passionate about. So a lot of our content will be within this pillar, and that's fine. As I say, it definitely has its purpose. It's just we need to be bearing in mind those other content pillars as well. So with that, let's move on to the next content pillar, which is E, which stands for engaging or engagement. So this is content designed with the specific purpose of building engagement, relationship building. So this can be all sorts of, you know, there's lots of different ways you can do this. There could be something as simple as a conversation starter, just a simple question that gets people talking and gives you an opportunity to actually have a conversation with your audience. Or it could be, you know, a longer piece of content, perhaps an opinion piece that you know is going to generate engagement, either, you know, agrees or disagrees. Any kind of controversial content tends to get a lot of engagement. Entertaining content, of course, tends to get a lot of engagement. Inspiring, essentially any kind of content where you are inspiring some kind of emotion tends to get good engagement. Personal stories often get good engagement. So there's lots of different ways we can do this, but it's a really important part of your content because essentially your content is trying to achieve three things for your marketing, right? The first thing is kind of attracting new people to your world and sort of sharing your stance, your message. So people kind of know who you are, what you stand for, what you're here to help them with. So that's one core piece, right? The second core piece is then building trust and helping people to make a decision as to whether you are the person that they want to invest in. And conversations have to happen for that. For that process to happen. And so, these types of engagement pieces of content are designed to sort of facilitate that connection, facilitate those conversations. Okay, so we've had so far M for messaging, O for your offer, N for niche-based content, E for engaging content, and then the last one is Y for you. So again, this is absolutely key for that sort of trust building part of your marketing. You have to let people know a little bit about who you are if they're going to make a decision as to whether you are the person that they want to invest in. And this is especially important when you're selling a high ticket service, because that trust needs to be high. For someone to make a high ticket investment, they need to really feel safe. That this is going to be a wise investment, and so that requires you to build that trust with your content, and a lot of that is going to involve you talking about who you are, what you stand for, why you are someone who can help them, what gives you the kind of qualification to be able to help them. And when I say qualification, I'm not necessarily speaking about kind of official sort of school exam qualifications, but like what makes you the person who can help them. So that could be sharing your story, previous experience, previous client wins. I think it's really important that we share our values. Often when we're looking to invest in someone, we tend to go for people who share similar values to us. So I think it's really helpful to talk about, who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. It all makes it easier for your potential clients to make a decision as to whether you are the right person or not. For them to invest in. And essentially that is what your content is there to do. That's what your marketing is there to do, and your sales. It's all about making it as easy as possible for your potential clients to make a decision as to whether they want to invest in your service or not. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, then do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be hugely helpful, and make sure you give it a like as well, because you'll make my day. And I will be back again tomorrow with more of my thoughts on developing and selling a high ticket service. I'll see you then.